It almost seems to me as they want us to turn around and not exercise the right, but I am a registered voter. I plan to exercise my right every time I'm to vote.
Other voters say they had issues just getting to their polling place and arrived to lines that wrapped around the block. Election officials say they had long lines since polls opened at 6 this morning. The governor's race in Georgia is one of the most contested in the country. The close race between Democrat Stacey Abrams and Republican Brian Kemp could bleed into a December runoff if neither major party candidate wins 50% of the vote. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Hello, this is Deputy Sheriff Paul Schrader. When principle, leadership, experience matters, Mike Safety is your first choice for Redland City Council and first on the ballot. I've known Mike Safety for years. He's a business owner, family man, and your first choice for Redland City Council.
When it comes to public or private service, Mike Safety has the experience in both worlds. Mike Safety has been a CEO for 20 years, owned a small business, employed dozens of people, and serves in key supervising roles for public safety and special investigations for the county. Mike's assisted in $80 million transportation and $110 million flood control budgets. Mike's a longtime community activist, contributes to our community of Redlands. Mike Safety is your first choice for Redlands City Council on the ballot.
I'm Mike Safety, and I approve this message.
KCAA is your CNBC News affiliate. We're the station that gets down to business.
KCAA and KQLH. KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3, 106.5 FM, and our cousin station, KQLH 92.5 in Yucaipa. We are live, local, and on the air with the Inland Empire's most detailed election coverage. I'm here. My name is Mark Westwood with, who will turn his microphone on anytime. His mic, it's not on. That's the engineer's fault. There we go. Can we hear him now? Nope. Just a second. Well, we have another microphone, and you will get that. And we will do that shortly. Our first technical problem here. But I will lead with it anyway. It has been an election of elections here. Ladies and gentlemen, the turnout has been strong everywhere, all across the nation. Voters have stepped up to the polls, and they are voting. Long lines, lots of people having opinions on social network, social media. And now I can introduce, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Caravella.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
He has his own microphone.
I do. Look at that. I've graduated.
Yes, exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, as we were saying, the turnout has been strong.
Very strong.
Social media has been very strong today. If you've been on the social media.
I have. All over. Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat even, and Instagram. They even have those cool filters that you can show that you actually voted. So that's kind of cool too. A lot of hot races happening, not just here locally, but also nationally. We're looking at Texas, Georgia, and Florida specifically.
Yes, the polls have closed officially in the East Coast about an hour ago.
Yeah, only 29% of the votes are in for governor in Georgia, and Brian Kemp is killing it right now against Stacey Abrams, 60 to 39%. But
absolutely,
that could change. Florida's pretty close. That's that Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis, 49% to 48%.
Highest turnout in 20 years across the nation.
Yeah.
And places like Google, you go to everywhere. The election was everywhere today.
I'm not going to say it's millennials, but it's millennials.
Well, it's a lot of people. I think a lot of people want change, and they didn't like the change they saw. They didn't. Donald Trump was not on the ballot, but yet
he thought he was.
Yes.
If you notice those vote Trump 2018
rallies
or ads.
yes. And well, the turnout has been strong, but we've seen things like New Jersey going from red to blue for governor.
Yeah.
That's been one. It's predicted now that the Democrats will contain the Congress by 224 Dems to 211. That's a prediction already gone on, but they're not there yet. And, we still have California. Yeah. So far in the Democratic races, we have seen statewide by statewide in the congressional votes they're counting, Dems have 34 seats. The GOP has 42, and yet there's 24 to be decided.
It's going to get exciting the second half of the night here.
What hasn't happened yet? The polls have not closed in California.
No, they're still open for two more hours.
2 more hours. Well,
yeah, 6 to 8.
Yeah, an hour and 50 minutes exactly. The polls are still open. You can still get your polls if you're in San Bernardino and you haven't voted and you don't have your ballot in your car and you're way home. Well, just drop by 777 West Rialto Boulevard in San Bernardino, near San Bernardino and Waterman Avenue, and you can vote there. There are all kinds of places you can vote live. You just walk into any poll, and you can ask for a provisional ballot if you're not registered to vote and you want to participate in this. You can register to vote and get a provisional ballot, and your ballot will be counted within the next 30 days.
And fun fact, 8 mayor races are happening right now here in the Inland Empire. San Bernardino, Colton, Moreno Valley, Grand Terrace, Montclair, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and Fontana.
Yes, and in particular, Ontario has had the same Republican mayor for about 14 years, I believe, and he's getting challenged by a guy named Sam Crow, who was a former city councilman, former school board member, and a longtime Ontario person. We're seeing a lot of these races sweeping Democrat, and we will probably see that as the night goes on.
What is it called? Blue wave? The blue wave?
The big blue wave. Yes, it's turning into a tsunami. And it was mocked in the primary that they said, oh, where's the blue wave, the big blue wave? Well, now we're seeing this happening here. Virginia turned over a congressional seat.
Yeah.
In Virginia, they were expected to pick up 3. The Republicans have only gotten 1. There's still 1 that's very tight and very close to call, but they have officially picked up a seat out of those 3. Bad news for the Republicans all across the United States right now. Who is to blame for that? Maybe the policies. Maybe Donald Trump.
I blame Twitter.
And Twitter. Maybe Twitter.
It's all Twitter's fault.
But, the campaigns are over now. We're trying not to editorialize. We're just trying to report what is going on. And Congress seems to be going to the Democrats at this time. The Senate is hanging the balance by 2.
Yeah.
And half the nation hasn't been counted yet.
And then later on tonight, we're going to get to those props here in California. Those are big ones.
Texas. Ted Cruz is losing to Beto O'Rourke by about 2%.
That's kind of a big deal.
It's a big deal because that hasn't happened. Our CEO of the company must be just a delight because he is a Democrat and he loves Beto O'Rourke. So that's a good thing.
Right. But that's only 51% of the votes as of right now.
But it's a good trend, and when they're coming in by 2% at this time of the night in Texas, the polls closed there an hour ago.
Yeah,
and actually, are they closed? They're closed as of right now.
Yeah, we don't have Texas behind us
as of right now
on the wall.
So we don't have to. We were laughing about that earlier. Our clocks. We'll have to talk to our engineering department. Our clocks are radio controlled.
Yeah.
And we had the big daylight time savings thing that happens every year.
Right.
And they didn't update themselves. And I was looking just before we went on the air and I went, we're a little off on some of those clocks. Some of them changed, some of them didn't. And so don't look at the clocks up there because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to talk to the clock manufacturer.
But fun fact, if Prop 7 passes, the clocks are correct.
Yes.
This could be the last time we have to do this.
Yeah, and by the way, we have Nick Lane over here in the broadcast booth, and I invited Nick Lane to give commentary too. And I want to introduce Nick. We got kind of carried away there.
Thank you very much.
But Nick is running the controls. He's really in control, so we'll have to be nice to him.
Yes, that's true. But yes, no, if Prop 7 passes, our clocks are correct. And we'll know in about 2 hours from now.
Yeah, it won't update that fast. Actually, what Prop 7 does is gives the legislature the ability to change it. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change it.
Well, let's hope they do. I want to try something different. That's kind of why I want it.
It's exciting news all over the place. The turnout has been good. People are exercising their democracy. If Donald Trump has done one thing, some people say he hadn't made America great yet. Some people said, well, he's made America divided again. I'm kind of that school. But one thing he has done is he has awoken the sleeping giant. The voters are voting, and in numbers that we haven't seen in a long time. And, round the clock, they've been voting by mail.
Yep.
In Orange County, hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots. Most people are counting and casting their ballot by absentee ballot. California, strong Democratic state, expected to have a Democratic governor with Gavin Newsom. We'll see. How are things turning out in California?
Yeah, Donald Trump single-handedly has encouraged voter awareness.
Somehow or other. And I think what it is he's probably encouraged voter offense rattled the senses
I
of
like
people.
the word awareness.
Of logic by threatening to fire on refugees at the border. And then the Republicans, Mitch McConnell and Ryan, Paul Ryan. I almost said Ryan Seacrest. Paul Ryan.
That's a
Paul
different
Ryan,
show.
Yeah.
In 2 years, maybe.
Anyway, have threatened to take away Social Security and medical benefits. And guess what?
What?
President Trump really didn't gauge this right, because the exit polls asking people not about who they voted for, but what their important issues are about. The Pew Research says that the most important issue was people's health care. They don't want their health care taken away. They may not like Obamacare completely. They want it fixed, but they don't want it gone without an alternative.
Exactly.
And so health care, over 50% of the people, the most important thing about how they voted was about their health care. Surprise!
Yep.
And then medical and Social Security, those types of things they were worried about. And then, Trump tried to beat the chest about the economy, that he inherited a good economy. A lot of people said he inherited it from the previous president, previous administration, President Obama, and that, like, with unemployment being down to 3.5%, well, it was, down to 3.4% before, so you can brag about that, but there's very not much difference. Or the GDP, or, housing sales and housing starts, all those economic factors, Wall Street, the indexes have not varied very much in the last 4 years. So the economy, the people, 27% really cared about the economy. And then immigration was way down there.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. Trump was in these rallies and down at the border and, threatening to fire, rifles against rocks. All that, 13% of the people said immigration was really that much important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an interesting night. It's going to be a long night, I think, in some races. We're going to see some interesting changes. California is probably going to go Democratic, as it always has been, but we're going to see that too. We're going to see how Trump has affected things in California and locally in the mayoral races and everything from water board to school board to city council, all on the ballot tonight. It's very, very important. And we're about 15 minutes after 6. We've seen some polls close. I want to catch up here and go to NBC, the network, for a little bit, and we're going to come back and rejoin in just a little bit after. We're taking a lot of information in here, folks.
Yes, we are.
It's a barrage of information, so we want to get it to you correctly, and we want to pile it up for you. And so right now we're going to go live to NBC News.
There's still a lot of votes to come in, but certainly the energy here sort of changed from tenuous to feeling a bit more optimistic at this point. Guys?
All right, Katie, we wait for Florida. The president went there, I think, 5 times since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, you want drama? We got drama. Plenty of it to come throughout the evening. We'll take a short break, be back with more of our 2018 election coverage here on NBC.
NBC News, taking a short break.
They would. You know what? It's because they want us to take over right now. I think
that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Going back to Florida, since they're at break right now. They're saying it's too close to call. 97% of the votes are in. Ron DeSantis, 49.9%. 50% now. It's at 50%, and Andrew Gillum still at 48.8%.
But what's interesting about that is Florida is highly Republican. Lots of.
I really thought it was a
senior
swing
citizens.
state. No,
it's in some counties, but not. Florida has always been consistently. It's the one that elected Jeb Bush and the Republican governor before that. This is the one that gave us. What Trump called the little man, the former governor and now senator, ran for president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen.
Marco Rubio.
Little Marco Rubio, yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Another Republican. So, yeah, Florida has not been a typically a Republican state. In fact, it was Florida that decided between George Bush Jr. and Al Gore. Back in 2000.
That's right. The recount, right?
All right. So to see Florida come this close, to see some states like Virginia turn over a Senate seat, just to see some of this happening in the state of Texas, the great state of Texas, of which I was born, by the way, to see Beto O'Rourke leading Ted Cruz when they were predicting in the last few days that Ted Cruz was going to sail into this easily, and Beto O'Rourke is now leading him by about almost 2 percentage points, about a tenth off. But
that's big.
That's big, and we see as they go down here that they're just going to continue probably that tonight, and we may see a Senate race turned over there, and that's important because the Democrats only need two.
That's it.
To win the Senate, to have the majority in the Senate, and already we're predicting that the congressional House is going to the Dems. The predictions are 224 to 211 GOP with 211, the Dems with 224. We've already picked up 16 seats. Right now it's 34 to 42. Dems have 34. GOP has 42. There's 24 hanging in the balance, but we haven't heard from California yet. There are 14 races in California that are expected to be turned over to Democrats from Republicans.
And just released NBC News is now estimating that Democrats will take control. The party has a 65% chance now of reclaiming the House with a likelihood of winning 224 seats. That's NBC estimating here right now.
Right, and the predictions sometimes can be off, but
that's right.
We haven't seen that happen much. We just have not seen that very much, and it's an interesting time. People may have not liked what they heard, and people have probably spoken tonight and said, "No, this is not the way we want to go, and this is not the America that we want. We want another America, the America, of the great frontier,
right?
With social policies, with Social Security, with medical care, with Medicare, and to take care of our people. And given you're tired, you're huddled masses, I don't think people like the tenor of a president sending 5,200 troops to the border. And that's 3 times what we have in Iraq and Iran. And I don't think they like that. And I don't think the president calculated that right. Again, he was hammering on immigration, the wall, and just got into that since he locked himself in on that. I think he really locked himself in on that, and really that came out to be the least deciding factor of voters' decisions.
And regardless how you feel about it, I mean, both sides of the media spectrum have both pulled ads for what Trump was promoting there with the wall and the caravan. Both Fox News and NBC both pulled the ads and said, "No way, we're not going to run them." So.
Yes, there was the caravan ad that was very offensive to people. That accused. They had this murderer who came into the country 3 times illegally, twice under President Bush. Lived in the county of Joe Arpaio, who was a very big Trump supporter, Republican sheriff. But yet they did these lies that said Democrats are the reason why he killed these cops, and Democrats are the reason why he was here. It was a very broad-based assumption and very highly controversial, of course. And that, I think, has backfired. I think that backfired across the nation, and you see people got stirred about that, and people don't like that. So it came out, there's this group of people counting the number of what they say are Trump's lies, and the people believe that this is true, that he had over 6,000 lies in this past 600 days.
You're actually starting to see some candidates distance themselves from Trump. For example, the gubernatorial race here in California, John Cox has not been uttering that word for some time.
And Tim Donnelly, he has been saying in ads that are on these radio stations that he doesn't like Trump, and that Paul Cook, his opponent, is a Trump supporter. So it'll be interesting in that race what happens there in that race. There's 2 Republicans running in the 8th congressional district.
That's this one,
right? And in the 31st congressional district, we have Pete Aguilar.
Yes.
In the 27th congressional district, these are all San Bernardino County people. That's why I'm referring to them. And Judy Chu has a little sliver out by Chino Hills. She's a Democrat. We have the 35th district is Norma Torres. And then we have over in Riverside, we have Mark Takano and Dr. Raul Ruiz. All of these are hanging in the balance. Of course, Nancy Pelosi is up for re-election as well.
Indeed.
And she's predicted to be the next Speaker of the House if this happens again. She's saying that she will try to have a more temperate conversation with the president and try to do some compromising. And there's a lot of people already backlashing about that on social media that says no. They want to see impeachment.
The races that I'm really looking forward to when the polls close in this coast are there's some really intriguing races in Orange County. Steve Knight and Katie Hill is a big one. Dana Rohrabacher, he's been in office for what, 80 years, just about.
Not quite, but yeah, I think he's been in about 30 some years.
For about 30 years.
There are no term limits in Congress.
No, there aren't.
There's no way to impeach a member of Congress. There's no way to impeach a 6-year term member of the Senate either.
No comment on that, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, people who are elected to the United States Senate are in there for 6 years. Now, people who are elected to Congress are in there for 2 years.
Right.
So polls are still open in California. There's a lot to be decided. Who will be the next governor, Gavin Newsom or Cox?
Speaking of years, the Senate race between Feinstein and De Leon is going to be an interesting one.
There's 2 Democrats in that one.
Two Democrats.
And Dianne Feinstein is an amazing woman. She's served a long time. She's had a big voice now. She was not supported so much by the Democratic Party until after the Kavanaugh hearings. And then she is back way up in the approval ratings among Democrats. But, you know, what's it's interesting to see what how that election will come out now. Because of that, a lot of Republicans were supporting Kevin De Leon. But, you know, in the primary before the Kavanaugh hearings, which was, you know, of course, the hearings for the Supreme Court, before those hearings, she wasn't so popular. And with Democrats, now she seems to be more popular. Now Kevin seems to be more popular with Republicans.
Right.
But, you know, all in all, she had 31 opponents in the primary on the ballot. 31 opponents, and still came out with 41% of the vote. I was just simply amazed, mathematically and statistically, how that happened, but it did. And you know that you know, Kevin De Leon came in like a distant second. It wasn't even a close second. So we're going to see how that race turns out in California. Tony Thurmond and Marshall Tuck running their very, very heated, very expensive campaign for state superintendent of schools. What's hanging in the balance?
To be honest, I think they had the most prettiest ads. I mean, I watched them. I'm like, that was shot very nicely.
Yeah, well,
they were good.
No, they were. To hold it in the balance, though, is whether we support, you know, privatization of schools. Marshall Tuck is a big charter school using public money for charter schools advocate. Tony Thurmond is a public schools advocate. You know, we have every constitutional office in California for the last 8 years has been held by a Democrat. There hasn't been an attorney general, a secretary of state, a controller, an insurance commissioner, a governor, a lieutenant governor that has been held by a Republican. So it'll be interesting to see. There's been some very heated battles amongst Democrats for that. And in the case of the lieutenant governor, we have 2 Democrats running, Elena Kounalakis. Thank God I just said her name right.
Kounalakis.
Kounalakis.
You're close.
Kounalakis. Thank you, Nick.
And you want to know why I know? It was that ad that she was running, where she was making fun of the fact that her last name was so hard to pronounce. Yeah. That's how I know how to pronounce her name.
Kounalakis Matata.
Yes.
What a wonderful phrase.
Yeah, what a wonderful phrase. But then Ed Hernandez is a Southern California guy.
Oh, Edward.
Edward Hernandez. And so we might see that. There's going to be an interesting, maybe a tight race between Northern and Southern California.
What does the lieutenant governor really do? Because Newsom has gone on record saying, you don't do anything. So what does a lieutenant governor really actually do?
Well, back in the day when you had a Republican governor and a Democratic lieutenant governor, which can happen in California, you can have lieutenant and not like the president and vice president, the same gender, so to speak. They could be different parties. Back in the day, the governor could hardly leave the state if he didn't want to have some shenanigans being pulled. And a great one for that was a guy named Mike Kerb. And he was the last lieutenant governor when Jerry Brown was governor for the first time. Jerry Brown will have completed 16 years as governor.
So this is term 1 you're talking about.
Right. This is the first 2 terms he had.
Okay.
And then now he's had 2 more terms. Now under our state constitution, he is officially termed out. Before
termed out.
Yes, before there wasn't term limits for the governor, and so it didn't apply to him. So he could actually, he had 2 times. He didn't run again, and then he came back and he ran again, and now he was.
It worked out.
He qualified for 2 more terms, and he had 16 terms. A lot of people liked Jerry Brown. A lot of people didn't like Jerry Brown. He's left the state with a huge budget surplus. When he's done and when he's out, then there's a lot of people say he shouldn't be holding on to that budget surplus. He should be giving it back.
He can move to another state and run for governor.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, he could do that. But he's 70-plus years old, and I've met the man. He's a very fiscal conservative. and a little difficult to get along with. I would say grouchy at times. And
I can see that in interviews.
Yeah. I met him the first time back in the day. Howard Dean was running for president of the United States, and I got shuttled off into a back area to meet Howard Dean. And I'm sitting there when I'm talking to this guy who's kind of half balding and a little older and elderly, and we're talking back and forth. Just a quick Jerry Brown story. I didn't know who he was. I didn't recognize him.
Right.
I had maybe 30, 45 minutes of conversation with Jerry Brown. I thought, man, this guy's really intellectual. He's very smart. He knows what he's talking about, knows the issues. And then Governor Howard Dean, I forget what he was. Howard Dean came up and said, Governor Brown. And I went, oh, my God, I've been talking to Governor Brown for 35 or 40 minutes, the former governor at the time. But now he's been governor again. And occasionally I run into him, and he's grouchy. But that's my story about that. And I'm sure people are not interested in it. Senate at this hour, 39 Democrats, 45 GOP. It's picked up a little bit. There's 435 seats, and the results are coming in right now. 225 Dems to 210 Republicans.
This is interesting. Florida is reporting that they have given more than 1 million people their voting rights back. Their Fourth Amendment of their state constitution is passed tonight, giving an estimated 1.5 million Floridians their voting rights. Pretty much their constitutional amendment, which needed at least 60% of the vote to pass, will automatically restore voting rights to ex-felons who have completed their sentences. Those convicted of murder or sex crimes are not eligible for right restorations under the bill. That could change things.
It could really change things. There's ballot propositions in the state of California that could change things, too. We're going to be covering all of the local results, all of the statewide results, all of the national results, through the 7 o'clock hour. We'll be back in the 8 o'clock hour, right up until 9:30, however long it takes to report the results.
That's right.
And
I'm on the clock.
We're here. KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, 102.3 FM, and our cousin station, KQLH 92.5 FM. Election night 2018. I'm Mark Westwood.
Andrew Caravella.
And
Nick Lane.
In the house. We'll be back after this message.
In the house. No pun intended.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, K292 FQ Riverside, and K293 CF Moreno Valley.
NBC News Radio, Decision 2018, Special Report.
Sherrod Brown will continue to represent Ohio in the U.S. Senate. The Cleveland area Democrat easily won re-election over Republican Congressman Jim Renacci. Other winners include Democratic Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland, Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, and Democrats Bob Casey of Pennsylvania and Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Some folks in Georgia waited a long time in line to cast their ballots. This woman in Atlanta says she was waiting it out because she believed this was one of the most important elections that she'd ever been a part of.
Because of the state of the country and because of the state of the union.
Other voters said they had issues just getting to their polling place and arrived to lines that were wrapped around the block. Election officials say they've had long lines since the polls opened at 6 this morning. Stacey Abrams would be the first black woman elected governor if she can win in Georgia. And Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf wins another term. From the NBC News Radio National Decision Desk, I'm Mark Mayfield.
California headline news. Voters throughout the state are casting ballots in today's midterm election. A large turnout is being reported at many polling locations. There have been a few scattered problems reported as well. This voter explains why it's important for everyone to vote.
Every vote counts, and that's part of why America is the way it is that we all are just a melting pot of different opinions, and it's important to make sure yours is shared.
Polls will remain open until 8 p.m. 25-year-old Stephen Scarpa has been charged with one felony count of murder. Scarpa is accused of driving drunk when he struck Costa Mesa Fire Captain Mike Kreese on Saturday. Kreese died 2 days later. He was riding his bicycle when he was hit on Saturday. Actor Michael Douglas is the newest addition to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. During the ceremony this morning when he got his star, he honored his father, legendary actor Kirk Douglas, who attended the event.
I thank you for your advice, for your inspiration, and I'll say it simply and with all my heart. I'm so proud to be your son.
Kirk Douglas will turn 102 in a month. Steve Clausen, California News.
So much to watch, so little time for sports fans in the fall.
It's this week's Geico Sports Now.
I can't believe the weekend went by so fast. It's hard to prioritize college football on Saturday, the pros on Sunday, then you throw in hockey and basketball, and it seems like sports fans need an extra day off, which means honey-do lists all across the country are collecting dust hanging on the fridge this time of year. And ain't nobody got time for that.
Geico could assist you in saving lots of money on your car insurance. Go right now to geico.com for all the details.
A good night's sleep starts with the right pillow. That's where MyPillow comes in, and we're excited to announce the new 4-pack special. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the 4-pack special tab, and save 50% off the 4-pack, which includes 2 MyPillow premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Call 1-800-266-4719. That's 1-800-266-4719. Take advantage of this limited time offer. Go to MyPillow.com now. Click on the 4-pack special tab and use promo code COMFORT at checkout.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Alvin in Washington. Poll workers may have to fight the fog after counting the votes tonight. Low of 55. Fog greets your Wednesday commute. A high of 75. Sunshine. Then gets to clear skies and more fog Wednesday night. Low 54. Sunny Thursday with a fire weather watch. I'm Alvin in Washington, broadcasting live from the Tri-City Center at the 10 and 210 freeways. We are the trifecta of talk in Southern California, KCAA. 102.3 FM, Riverside, 106.5 FM, Redlands, and the Legacy 1050 AM, Loma Linda, San Bernardino.
Election night 2018. Coming to an end here soon. We all are going to be glad, I'm sure, with all of our mailboxes stuffed with mailers. I want to mention KQLH 92.5 is on with us too, our cousin station over in Yucaipa.
Cousin station.
They have studios within our building, and that's their relation to us, but they are also using us as their election night coverage, so we're glad to be that. We are your NBC radio station, CNBC and NBC Sports home here in Southern California. We are KCAA 1050 AM. I am Mark Westwood.
And I'm Andrew Caravella.
And queuing him in, he's a little slow on the uptake, is
Nick Lane.
Thank you, Nick. He's getting used to being on the air. We love it. But Nick is a very bright individual, very smart, and we thought, let's bring him in on this conversation. It has been quite an election night, hasn't it, Andrew?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now in Georgia and Florida and Texas. I think those are 3 of the biggest ones outside of the state of California.
And to recap for our listeners who just might have been joining us here in your automobile or your car driving down the road and you haven't heard, the turnout has been the strongest in 20 years in the nation.
20 years.
20 years. It is huge. Lines and lines of people everywhere. I asked around people placing votes here in California, and our polls are still open for quite a while yet.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And there's been lines. There's been people at the polls. They said that it's being processed very quickly. They didn't have to wait long, but that's a good thing. But there are a lot of people voting, and that is a good thing, too, because we need more people to exercise their right to democracy.
That is correct.
And, Nick, did you go to your poll today, or did you vote by mail?
I voted by mail.
Me too.
They gave it to me about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I did it almost instantly.
As did I. And I think about 70% of people have voted by absentee ballot here in San Bernardino County. In Orange County is like the same story. In Los Angeles County,
70,000, I believe.
700,000. 700,000 absentee votes or vote by mail have been cast in Los Angeles County, the highest number ever in history.
And you know what that tells me is that, and the high voter turnout tells me the same story. This is an incredibly impassioned election for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides are incredibly, incredibly passionate right now. For good or for bad, that's, whatever. But this is huge, and I expect a similar, if not a greater, turnout in 2020.
Right.
The next 2 years are going to be crazy. And you know what? If I can give Trump credit for one thing, it's for lighting a fire under everybody.
Well, the press has been incredible.
Voter awareness.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, from the time he was in the primary, and I was already sick of the primary because he just talks so much. I thought to myself, Trump can't be as bad as people said he was on one end. I mean, nobody could be that much of a demon, and then it kept coming out and coming out and coming out. And you're like, oh, you're going to shoot refugees at the border with rocks, with rifles, that sort of thing has, I think, incensed the United States American public. And this has been a demonstration of it today. The voting, they didn't come out in droves to be positive and support Donald Trump, I don't think.
No.
We've seen across the nation.
Doesn't look that way.
It doesn't look that way. Already the United States Congress has gone, by the way, to the Democrats, and by a substantial number. We might see a Senate that's Democrat as well.
I have the top 10 highlights from NBC News for election night so far, if you want to hear them.
I would love to hear them, and so would our listeners.
All right. Well, NBC News is estimating, we mentioned this earlier, that Democrats have a 65% chance of taking control of the House. However, as you said earlier, that stuff could change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, NBC News is projecting that Indiana Democrat incumbent.
It could change if, like, California waves in with a lot of Republican House races. Don't think so.
Okay.
Anyway.
Indiana Democratic incumbent Senator Joe Donnelly has lost his seat to Republican challenger Mike Braun, making the Democratic Party's path to regain control of the Senate even more difficult. Georgia voters are suing the state's Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, who is also the GOP candidate for governor, over his ability to impartially administer a potential vote recount. For the first time in at least a decade, voters cite health care as their top priority, which we've mentioned tonight, surpassing the economy.
And immigration was down there, way down there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the distance was people were concerned about their health care, about their Social Security, about their Medicare, and taking care of their parents. And that was the big thing, by over 50% for the exit polls.
Yep.
And then it was down there for economy. And economy is about 27%.
Exactly.
And then weighing in at about 13%, which is pretty low, was immigration. And that was Trump's biggest miscalculation.
Number 5 on the list, Nick had already chimed in on this earlier, the Trump factor. 2/3 of voters, both sides, fun fact, are saying that Trump played a role in their vote. Number 6, across the country, voters are reporting broken machines, long lines, and other problems with casting their ballot, forcing some polling locations to extend their hours. So we could be here until 1 in the morning.
Well, the reporters from the National News will be. An interesting thing here, things like Texas.
Yeah.
Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz. The last week I've heard, how Beto O'Rourke had lost the race, Right. It was, he wasn't going to win. There's no way he could catch up on that 6-point lead that Ted Cruz had. And here we see tonight that he is. He's winning.
He's winning. Number 7, it's not just candidates on the ballot. A number of states are voting on marijuana, minimum wage, Medicare, and more. Number 8.
There's one in San Bernardino, marijuana.
That's right. That's right. Number 8, President Trump is keeping a close eye on returns from the White House. Of course he is. Number 9, spending on traditional media ads increased by roughly $1 billion compared to the 2014 midterms, with the most amount being spent in Florida. And last but not least, 1 in 4 Latino voters said today it was their first time voting in a midterm election, according to exit polls.
Yes, and I've talked to several people who voted for the first time, registered to vote, and there's so much to talk about, and there's so much to report on right now because our polls are still open, and we still have a lot of voters and a lot of races in the balance. In the 27th Congressional District, we have Judy Chu, who's a congressional member there, Pete Aguilar against Sean Flynn. Norma Torres is running out in the 35th District. We have a highly advertised race, 2 people, Gil Cisneros in the 39th Congressional District. We've got all these races that people need to be voted for and need to be decided by California voters. If you have not voted yet and you're running down the road and you forgot your ballot and you just discounted it and you said, well, maybe I'll vote next time around, this is time to vote. 777 West Rialto Boulevard in San Bernardino, the Registrar of Voters. You can, drive right in, vote really quickly. If you have your absentee ballot and you want to put it down to the drive-through, they've got a drive-through. You can drive right through, hand them your ballot, and drive off. If you have not registered to vote and you want to vote, California has a new law.
What's that?
That law says that you can go to any polling place and say, I want to register to vote. They will hand you a registration form. You can register, and then they'll hand you what they call a provisional ballot. That means provided provided that your registration goes through, your vote will then be counted. It won't be counted tonight, but all elections, people don't understand, don't end on election night. They actually end 30 days after the election when the registrar of voters from that county certifies.
Right. Texas, it's still too early to call, but it's now dead even 50-50 with only about 7,000 vote difference between Beto and Cruz right now.
They said the words night fight earlier, and I think that that might be what we're going to see here.
That's
at night
intense,
fight.
super intense.
And you know what? Sometimes these races are so intense that they won't be decided tonight.
Yeah.
They won't be called tonight. They may be called in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, even a week after we've seen that happen.
This is Texas, though, we're talking about, which is even more interesting.
Right. It's showing you across the nation what's happening. We're looks like turning over the United States Congress. We are part of a network that's an incredible news network, has been an incredible news network through the history of the United States, the NBC network, and I think that we should join them in some of their reporting.
Good idea.
I think that's a good idea, and then we'll come back in a while with some updates through the 7 o'clock hour, and then in the 8 o'clock hour we'll be back full-fledged with the results nationally, nationwide.
Don't forget locals coming up in a little bit.
Then we're going to really focus on the local stuff. The local stuff coming up, and that's going to be interesting too, because the polls close in exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Get excited.
All right. KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. Let's hear that great election night music. 102.3 FM and KQLH 92.5 FM. I'm Mark Westwood.
Andrew Caravella.
And Nick Lane. We'll be back after this.
But after we saw the primary, the Texas primary, where Democrats surged, and yet we're still 500,000 votes fewer that participated in the Democratic primary than the Republican primary, we thought, boy, the numbers just aren't there to get over the top. But we'll see. He is underestimated. A lot of us have underestimated him the whole way, but that was the whole point of his race.
But it was, in many ways, a national race, and there were concerns of whether all that money, all that outside money would play in Texas.
Well, except he raised it on his own, and
right,
he
so anyways,
Texas. I mean, look, the National Democrats sort of stayed away out of they figured what good were they going to do? It's expensive anyway, and he didn't need the money. I mean, he raised more money than I think any presidential candidate in history in the primary campaign other than Obama and Clinton. I mean, it's an astronomical amount of money that he raised for a U.S. Senate race. Who isn't personally wealthy.
All right, we got to take a break right here. As we go to break, we want to show you our House meter. And right now, NBC News projecting an 80% chance that Democrats reach that magic number of 23 and take control of the United States House of Representatives.
Go ahead and say something.
Hi.
You can hear you. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Hi.
Okay, go ahead and talk.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Meredith, the medical intern.
Okay.
I'm Anthony.
Okay, Anthony, get your mic up there. Okay, you got to talk right into it, okay? Go ahead and say something.
Yeah, here we go. I'm Anthony.
Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, there we go.
KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and the control room says we're putting you back on, so we're going back on for a minute.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, it's
they were going to break.
So. Oh, we're going to break. Every time we do that, they go to break. Yeah, we are part of the network. But
dang it, I really want to hear Lester Holt talk as well.
The little part of the network here. Lots going on in the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning on, it is election night 2018 on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5, 102.3 FM, and our sister station, it's our cousin station rather, KQLH 92.5. And we were reporting on the results across the nation right now. We're going to report local results when the polls close at 8 o'clock. We're going to be here right up until the 9 o'clock hour with a short break in between the 7 o'clock hour for medical intuition.
Yeah.
And we'll be reporting inside that show as well.
But since we have some time, I wanted to ask you about these props in California.
Okay.
Specifically, one that's not on the ballot, Prop 9.
Was that the one dividing the states?
Yeah, into three.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
It was decided by the California Supreme Court that it wasn't constitutional in the way it was worded.
How do you think it would have went if it went on?
You know, it's hard to say. There would have been a lot of money into that, and I don't think it would have passed. They've tried 5 times before to do this, and it doesn't pass. And more times now because we are so integrated in together. You know, in the past we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social networking. We didn't have all the networks and highways and things like that connect us so well. And so because of that, the people are more connected because there's more airlines, more airports. You know, it's not uncommon for somebody to say, I'm going to Frisco this weekend, spend the weekend up there. Or somebody from Frisco coming down and going down to San Diego. And so the state is more connected than it's ever been connected. It is heavily Democrat. As I said before, there's not a single statewide Constitution office that is Republican held. It'll be interesting to say if that remains that way tonight, or maybe we might see something, maybe a controller's office or something go Republican. And then, you know, we've also seen the fact that there's so many Democrats and minority voters in California who would probably be against this. The Republicans really want this because they would have wanted to reapportion, you know, congressional districts and pick up a few more congressional districts. But regardless of whether California had voted on that and had approved it and the voters wanted it, there's more of a process to that particular item as well, which means it has to go before the United States Congress. It has to be ratified by the Congress. And then, you know, by a 2/3 majority is what ratification means. And that would be highly unlikely that would happen. California, by the way, produces 14% of the GDP in the United States economy. A lot of people say that California is the reason why the economy is doing so well. California is absolutely booming right now.
Well, we do have Apple and Amazon, I'm just saying.
Well, not just that, but it's booming for a lot of different industries and imports and recreation. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. You know, huge budget surplus. There's lots of housing starts, lots of employment, lots of jobs. And people are kind of happy with the way things are going right now. And so that's going to be interesting about Prop 6. We mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of people are against the gas tax around here, especially up in places like Victorville and things like that, where people commute huge distances. But in larger urban areas like in San Diego or Los Angeles or San Francisco, where people don't commute that far, they particularly tend to sway towards having good roads, good bridges.
Well, in San Francisco, they definitely need no on 6.
Why would you say that?
The roads are really bad. I was there for my birthday, and I was excited, and I got to drive around the town.
So you're saying that they will go vote no on 6?
They'll vote no on 6 because they need to fix their roads.
Well, look
badly.
at the map on that earlier too. You know what? I want to get back to our network, Nick, because for the last 5-7 minutes here, we're getting results nationwide, and that's what the people are really, really interested in right now. We'll hear the local results at 8 o'clock when the polls close. Get to those polls. Vote. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do it. 777 West Rialto Boulevard. You can mail in your ballot within 3 days after this election. Your ballot will still be counted. Right now, we go to our NBC News Network.
National treasure Tom Brokaw's on right now.
Whether he will or not, he'll automatically go to the top of a tier of some kind. It's Texas. He's been a very appealing guy, but there will be a lot of people. There has been no effort on the part of Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, for that matter, to pull the Democratic Party together at some retreat and saying, we got to get our act together here, folks, and we understand that we're a part of this. We've lost 3 elections in a row, and now it's time for us to step aside and have new leadership. They're not inclined to do that. They think that they can lead them to the promised land.
But, Tom, let me tell you something here. If this is a narrow House majority for the Democrats, if they, say, pick up somewhere north of 23 but less than 35, I don't think it's a given she's Speaker. I think that changes the equation in the House for the very reason you just said. You're going to have the people that got there saying, hey, do we need to think about a different direction?
Well, it also doesn't matter who wins.
You and I are saying the same thing. Yeah. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah. And in the Senate, you already have half a dozen people who think they should be president and are going to be candidates. So they're going to be all fighting amongst themselves.
It's easier to keep track of who doesn't think they should be president. It's a smaller number. Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting because there have been House races, and granted they're happening in districts that are conservative, where the Democratic candidate has said, I'm not going to support Nancy Pelosi. And so it is somewhat of a question whether or not she remains Speaker.
Here's what's interesting. Democrats had were pretty evenly divided about those that wanted to run to the left and those that wanted to run away from their party leaders. The Republicans, most of them ran with Trump. Very few of them ran away from him. Interestingly enough, the ones that ran away, They're losing right now, too.
Yeah, and we'll hear that from him tomorrow.
Yes,
I promise you.
Carlos Cabello, if he loses.
The fact is, he took a big risk in how it is who he is. I mean, the whole world is about Donald Trump, but he put himself out there, and he went from rally to rally to rally, and we'll hear a lot about that tomorrow. And we are
maybe tonight on Twitter.
The next 2 years, but let me leave you with this: the old broke-all line. In the next 2 years, UFO. The unforeseen will occur. We don't know what that is, but something will happen to disrupt this in one form or another for the Democrats or the Republicans.
All right, we're going to take a break. We will be back with more of our election 2018 coverage on NBC after this.
KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and coming back from the network here, 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 95%, 95 have gone to Democrats so far, 226 Democrats to 209 in the GOP in the state. They needed 218 for control. They're well past that.
Yeah, they are.
And so we're seeing the Congress go to the House of Representatives. And we're going to see much more dramatic results. We've seen the Ted Cruz, Beto O'Rourke race go back and forth as much as 3%, 4%, and now it's dead even at 50.3%.
And fun fact, now in Georgia, 56%, no longer 29, 56% of the votes are in. And Stacey Abrams is closing that gap at 42%. Brian Kemp still in the lead with 56%.
Which one's the Republican? Which one's the Democrat?
Stacey is the Democrat that Oprah and Obama were campaigning for. Oprah was going door to door.
Yeah, funny story. Oprah was going door to door and saying, and a vote for you, and a vote for you, and a vote for you. Everybody gets a vote. That's kind of funny.
So, and the difference there is 1.1 million have voted for Brian Kemp. Right now it's 836,000, which isn't that too far off for Stacey Abrams. So the gap is closing there.
Huge turnout at the polls. And just everywhere, even in California, the absentee ballots, we're gauging the absentee ballots. In Los Angeles County, they had over 700,000 absentee ballots. It's been strong in San Bernardino, in Orange County, San Diego County, all up and down the state. There's been a huge absentee voter ballot turnout. About 70% they're saying of people are voting by mail.
The magic number now for the Democrats to take control of the House is 15.
Yep, it's gone down. And then we have 2 Senate seats required, and we're seeing a very tight race in Texas. In Virginia, of all places, they expected to pick up 3 congressional seats for the Republicans. They only picked up 1.
Florida governor results: 99% of the votes are in. Way too close. 49.9% for Ron DeSantis. Andrew Gillum at 48.8%.
Wow, 48%. So, we're going to march into the top of the hour here and give you some results here as we go forward here. And then when we join NBC News Network in the 8 o'clock hour to begin with, as you're listening to on the radio, whether you're at work or whether you're going on the way home, we hope you're enjoying this coverage. I'm Mark Westwood with Andrew Cavella and Nick Lane as we continue on here for about 3 to 4 minutes. It has been a record turnout, highest in 20 years. We saw New Jersey go for the blue in the governor's race. We now have a Democratic governor in New Jersey for the first time in many, many years. We've seen a congressional race turned over in Virginia, of all places, to Democrats. We've got several minutes here.
85% chance for House control for Democrats.
Right. 85% has now gone up to there. And the Democrats have 35 to the 41 in the GOP, and there's 23 seats rather now in the balance as we count. And as I said, the polls are still open for another hour and about 2 minutes in California. And so whether or not we see see a bunch of Democrats or Republican congressional seats. I think we're probably going to see a bunch of Democratic seats in California. They're expected to pick up about 14 seats. So it's pretty much conceded that the House of Representatives will be controlled, and by a good number, by Republicans. So Donald Trump is going to have some audit and self-reflection, and he's going to have to maybe change some of his ideals and policies, I would think.
Once the polls close, yes. Once the polls close in the West Coast, that's when we're going to see it.
Yep. We've seen a huge miscalculation on the part of the president. He went for the gusto with immigration. He focused on immigration. He went down to the border, sent 15,000 troops to the border, more than 3 times the amount we have in Iraq and Iran. Gave a quote about, rifles against stones about 2 days ago. And then yesterday came forth and funded a commercial that even Fox News took off. It was so racist, they said, accusing a convicted killer of being put in by the Democrats and kept there by the Democrats, which was factually untrue. And he was back and forth in California, in Arizona, 3 times, under George Bush twice, and under Bill Clinton once. And you can't blame Democrats for such an act.
Here's the thing I don't understand. Why he's making immigration, from the start, such a national thing.
It was
because,
a base.
Really, it's only an issue for the border states, for California, for New Mexico, for Arizona, for Texas.
It is an issue for a lot of different states. But I got to tell you that they did some polls, Pew Research. We got a minute, I'll tell you. Healthcare. 50% of the people, over 50% of the people cared about healthcare. They found their healthcare to be threatened by Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. 27% cared about the economy, and only 13% cared about immigration. I'm Mark Westwood with Andrew Caravella and Nick Lane.
Yep.
And we will be back in the 7 o'clock hour with some updates, and then we will go in the 8 o'clock hour full tilt, give you the recap for the national elections, and then the local elections. Right here on KCAA 1050 AM.
Let's see, 102.3 and 106.5.
And KQLH 92.5 FM.
Don't go anywhere.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
California headline news. Voters throughout the state are casting ballots in today's midterm election. A large turnout is being reported at many polling locations. There have been a few scattered problems reported as well. This voter explains why it's important for everyone to vote.
Every vote counts. That's part of why America is the way it is that we all are just a melting pot of different opinions, and it's important to make sure yours is shared.
Polls will remain open until 8 p.m. 25-year-old Stephen Scarpa has been charged with 1 felony count of murder. Scarpa is accused of driving drunk when he struck Costa Mesa Fire Captain Mike Crees on Saturday. Crees died 2 days later. He was riding his bicycle when he was hit on Saturday. Actor Michael Douglas is the newest addition to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. During the ceremony this morning when he got his star, he honored his father, legendary actor Kirk Douglas, who attended the event.
I thank you for your advice, for your inspiration, and I'll say it simply and with all my heart. I'm so proud to be your son.
Kirk Douglas will turn 102 in a month. Steve Clausen, California News.
So much to watch, so little time for sports fans in the fall. It's this week's Geico Sports Now. I can't believe the weekend went by so fast. It's hard to prioritize college football on Saturday, the pros on Sunday, then you throw in hockey and basketball, and it seems like sports fans need an extra day off, which means honey-do lists all across the country are collecting dust hanging on the fridge this time of year. And ain't nobody got time for that.
Geico could assist you in saving lots of money on your car insurance. Go right now to geico.com for all the details.
A good night's sleep starts with the right pillow. That's where MyPillow comes in, and we're excited to announce the new 4-pack special. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the 4-pack special tab, and save 50% off the 4-pack, which includes 2 MyPillow premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Call 1-800-266-4719. That's 1-800-266-4719. Take advantage of this limited time offer. Go to MyPillow.com now, click on the 4-pack special tab, and use promo code COMFORT at checkout.
Hello, Hello, this is Deputy Sheriff Paul Schrader. When principal, leadership, experience matters, Mike Safety is your first choice for Redland City Council and first on the ballot. I've known Mike Safety for years. He's a business owner, family man, and your first choice for Redland City Council.
When it comes to public or private service, Mike Safety has the experience in both worlds. Mike Safety has been a CEO for 20 years, owned a small business, employed dozens of people, and serves in key supervising roles for public safety and special investigations for the county. Mike's assisted in $80 million transportation and